What is racism?
Racism is when you treat people or think of people unfairly, even though you don't know anything about that person as an individual. You base that off of an entire group, and it's usually negative.
Yeah, and what are some causes of racism?
Symptoms?
Some causes of racism.
Some causes?
Yeah.
Okay. You ready? Yeah. I would say probably just ignorance, people not knowing a lot about other places, not being well traveled, having bad experiences with someone who's different from you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi. What do you know about Islam?
I know that it is a monotheistic religion, and it follows kind of the same principles as Christianity and Judaism. All Muslims believe in one God, Allah, and they believe that Muhammad was the prophet.
Second question, do you think that all Muslims are terrorists?
No, I don't believe that all Muslims are terrorists. I think that is a stereotype that Americans especially associate with their religion just because of what has been, historically, what has been going on in the United States, but no.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hey.
What is racism in your own words?
Racism is a prejudice against someone's race, ethnicity, beliefs, or disability, if I can put it into words.
Could you please give me an example?
If I can give an example of this, it would probably be in the workforce. For example, if you believed hiring someone Caucasian with the same GPA coming out of college would actually be better than hiring an African American or a Latino. I think that would be a decent example of that, just based off of race.
Yeah. And do you think the more racist people can cause more problems?
I believe people that have racist beliefs can definitely cause a lot of problems, but what matters most is the ability to control yourself in public and to force these ideas onto someone else just because you believe in it. I think that's where the true problem lies.
And do you think in US black people are treated differently than white people?
I definitely believe there's been a lot of prejudice against black people for a long time, yes.
Why?
I mean, let's take the civil rights movement, for example, right? There were prejudice against people during that time also, whether it was segregation between schools, the workplace, and just in general, hostility.
Yeah, and the last question. Do you think racist parents can affect their children to be racist too?
I definitely believe that they can influence their kids, yes.
Okay.
Into believing these same prejudices as they do.
And could you elaborate more?
If my parents, for example, my parents, for example, taught me that dating someone outside my race was definitely bad, and I had to date someone that was either Filipino, but just generally someone that was Asian. Not because they necessarily hated the race, but they just hated the idea that I would be ruining my future by being with someone that was African American or Latina. That doesn't necessarily mean I wouldn't, but I can definitely see how it can affect other kids growing up with parents that have these values.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me, why there are many homeless in the US?
Well, I think it's due to immigration. There are a lot of people immigrating, and usually they don't have jobs or means of getting jobs. They don't have paperwork to get the right jobs, so they're kind of just stuck in a situation where they can't fend for themselves.
And what causes people to be homeless?
Yeah, like I said, they don't have the right paperwork or the right documents to be able to find work in the U.S.
So do you think the government is responsible for that's problem.
If you immigrated lawfully, it shouldn't be a problem. But there are a lot of unlawful immigrants. That's why that's a problem. So then it's not the government's job to give them jobs.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi. Yes. Can you please define racism in your own words?
Yeah, racism to me would be just believing that one race is superior to another, regardless of any fact.
Can you please give me an example?
An example would be, for example, me saying like all black people are lazy, or like it's natural for a black person to be lazy, something like that. Something that's not true, but it's just that you believe your own fact, your own opinion.
So do you think that the more racist people can cause more problems?
I mean, after a certain point, they can. I think at first it's not that big of a deal. I think if you let that misconception continue to grow, it can become a problem.
And what causes racism?
I think what causes racism is just being really ethnocentric, like just kind of secluding yourself and say your friends and family from experiencing different cultures. And I think also as well it's from other cultures being very secluded, like not willing to share their own beliefs or ideas.
Yeah. And do you think the police are treated black people differently than the white people?
I think, yeah, in most cases there's already a bias when approaching a black person when they're doing something. I mean, it could be the way that some black men or black people are dressed, but I think there is like a bias when they approach them.
Thank you.
Hi. What are some reasons for homelessness in the U.S.?
I think one of the major reasons why you have so many people homeless inside the United States is the idea of how small the minimum wage gap is compared to like the 1%. The minimum wage gap, even though the minimum wage that we have right now is still increasing. However, it's not really a living wage gap when you have to consider, like, for example, a single mother raising a kid. You have to worry about rent, food, gas, the price of goods going up, clothing, and other types of insurances. A lot of people go into negative if they don't work at least 2 minimum wage jobs. But I would say because the minimum wage gap between us and the 99% or the 1% is definitely a lot harder to maintain that lifestyle. And that's why there's so many homeless people around in the United States.
Do you think that drugs is like a major problem for being like homeless in the U.S.?
I feel like any addiction can if not maintained or worked on, can definitely bring someone into being homeless. For example, people are already homeless. I feel like when you have so little to think about how you have so little to worry about or just care about anymore, like when you don't have to worry about bills or anything like that, you kind of find an escapism through things like alcohol and destroying your body, for example, right, with drugs. The addictions definitely can keep people homeless, I believe. So, yeah.
And last question, how are people like treating the homeless in the U.S.?
It depends. For example, for me, I've definitely talked to my parents before of how they just gave up giving things to the homeless people, right? They have physically seen a person take, when it wasn't monetary, like gifts, for example, right, and they're giving like food and socks, they saw the same homeless person maybe a couple hours later trying to sell off the things that they're giving them to actually have physical money. Things like that, even though it's so obvious that they need socks and shoes and whatever, and these are just like the extra gifts that they're trying to give to them, they're trying to see themselves for something else. It feels disrespectful, and because of that, a lot of people just stop giving things to the homeless people.
Thank you.
Okay. how can we as a society decrease the number of racism?
I think we could decrease the number of racism if we just look at everyone the same. Like, we don't have to like separate everyone just because of their skin color or how they look. We just gotta be more inclusive and like more loving towards each other, and like stop hating on each other just because of our backgrounds or where we come from and what we look like. We just have to be more inclusive, I think.
And do you think racist parents can affect their children?
I definitely think that racist parents can affect their children just because like you grow up with your parents and like you kind of like them and in a lot of ways, like you like what they like, you dislike what they dislike. So I feel like if you grow up with racist parents, like you see it every day, and that's like the first things that you learn. And yeah, so if your parents are racist, you're very likely to be racist too, in my opinion.
And also, do you think that the police are treated people by their color differently?
This is kind of like my first answer. Like I totally think it depends, just because every situation is different. But I feel like there has been plenty of times that we have seen on the news and like that the police use their force in a way that they shouldn't be using it and take advantage of people that are like black skin color African Americans. And yeah, there's been like situations where they kill them for no like good reason, and I definitely feel like it has happened. But I also feel like sometimes, many of the times that it has happened, it might be because of a cause. We just gotta look at the whole picture, not just focus on what's recorded on video.
Okay, thank you.
For sure. Gotcha, man.